Welcome to 100% Responsibility, a communications tool designed to unleash the power of choosing effective behaviors and taking ownership for your outcomes in all your relationships. This model is a great way to identify the behaviors that constructively build healthy relationships and to recognize those that don't. 100% responsibility is a commitment to exercise respect and safety, first with self and then with others. It is not scripted or rehearsed. Rather, I find using this tool helps me to dig deeper, to search for options and generate possibilities rather than blame, rescue, or drop out, which is sometimes so much easier to do. So let's take a look at what you can expect for participating today and giving this session your time and attention. After completing this short course, you'll be able to successfully identify what 100% responsibility is and demonstrate the behaviors that correlate. You'll be able to effectively identify the roles of persecutor, rescuer, and victim and recognize when you or someone else is operating with more or less than 100% responsibility. You'll enjoy the direct benefit of effectively addressing and reducing conflict in your relationships. And you'll spark creativity and fun at work and at home. So what does it mean to be responsible, response-able? It means to make choices in behavior and communication that promote creativity, that generate vitality, that support mental, physical, and emotional well-being, that maximize potential and results, but above all, yield positive energy and fun. So let's get started. Our first role, the persecutor, loves to point the finger at everyone else and says things like, "It's your fault." Persecutors blame others. They say things like, "Who dropped the ball?" "No one wants to contribute." "I obviously can't count on you." "It's not my fault. You created this mess." So now I'd like to show a short clip from sociologist Brené Brown on what blame looks like.
How many of you are blamers? How many of you, when something goes wrong, the first thing you want to know is whose fault it is? Hi, my name is Brené. I am a blamer. Let me just tell you this quick story. So this is a couple years ago when I first realized the magnitude to which I blame. I'm in my house. I'm on white slacks and a pink sweater set, and I'm drinking a cup of coffee in my kitchen. It's a full cup of coffee. I drop it on the tile floor. It goes into a million pieces, splashes up all over me. And a millisecond after it hit the floor, right out of my mouth is this: "Damn you, Steve." Who's my husband? Because let me tell you how fast this works for me. So Steve plays water polo with a group of friends. And the night before, he went to go play water polo. And I said, "Hey, make sure you come back at 10, because I can never fall asleep until you're home." And he got back at 10:30. And so I went to bed a little bit later than I thought. Ergo, my second cup of coffee that I probably would not be having had he come home when we discussed. Therefore, and so the rest of that story is I'm cleaning up the kitchen. Steve calls, caller ID. I'm like, "Hey." He's like, "Hey, what's going on, babe?" What's going on? So I'll tell you exactly what's going on. I'm cleaning up the coffee that spilled all like dial tone. Because he knows How many of you go to that place when something bad happens, the first thing you want to know is whose fault is it? I'd rather it be my fault than no one's fault. Because why? Why? Because it gives us some semblance of control. But here, if you enjoy blaming, this is where you should stick your fingers in your ear and do the na thing, because I'm getting ready to ruin it for you. Because here's what we know from the research. Blame is simply the discharging of discomfort and pain. It has an inverse relationship with accountability. Accountability, by definition, is a vulnerable process. It means me calling you and saying, hey, my feelings were really hurt about this, and talking. It's not blaming. Blaming is simply a way that we discharge anger. People who blame a lot seldom have the tenacity and grit to actually hold people accountable, because we expend all of our energy raging for 15 seconds and figuring out whose fault something is. And blaming is very corrosive in relationships, and it's one of the reasons we miss our opportunities for empathy. Because when something happens and we're hearing a story, we're not really listening. We're in the place where I was, making the connections as quickly as we can about whose fault something was.
So now let's take a look at the rescuer. Here I come to save the day. Rescuers save others. They say things like, I can take care of it all. If I want it done right, I'll have to do it. No one wants to contribute, so I'll get it done. And if that seems too hard, well, here, let me do it for you. Our third role is the victim. And the victim often walks around saying or feeling or acting like, I'm a failure and powerless. Victims disappear. They say things like, who, me? I've nothing to offer. No one values what I have to say. Why am I always the one everyone blames? I might as well not be here. There are costs for when we operate with either more than 100% responsibility or less than. And when we operate with less than 100%, like the victim, we miss growth opportunities. We have low self-esteem. We walk around with an overwhelming sense of failure, and very often we just drop out. When we operate with more than 100% responsibility, well, there again too, there's lower productivity, there's lost creativity, we have feelings of burden and resentment, and unresolved conflict. But above all, we can tell when we are operating with more than 100% responsibility because we experience fatigue and burnout. The benefits of 100% responsibility is that it gives us an opportunity for feedback and growth. We can look at a situation and acknowledge we had a breakdown. We can ask ourselves, what was my part in creating it? What can I do to prevent this in the future? And what did I learn? So now it's your turn. I'm going to show you a couple of examples of persecutor behavior, and I'd like you to identify which of the following is a representation of 100% responsibility. So, blaming others for your mishaps. Beginning a sentence with you caused, you made me, you're the reason. Creating an agreement when both parties would be willing to talk through their concerns. Or not respecting another person's wishes or boundaries. So here we have 4 illustrations, and I want you to read over them carefully and recognize 3 of them are illustrations of persecutor behavior, and 1 is an illustration of 100% responsibility. Take a moment now and identify which one is an illustration of 100% responsibility. The correct answer is creating an agreement when both parties would be willing to talk through their concerns. Let's try it again with the rescuer. Which of the following are examples of rescuing behavior, and which one is an illustration of 100% responsibility? Offering advice when your colleague has asked you to listen. Mailing out a meeting an invite with an attached agenda. Calling everyone on the team to remind them of a deadline. Or staying late to finish a team project, especially to make sure it gets done right. Again, look at the responses we have here. 3 of them are examples of rescuing behavior, and 1 is an example of 100% responsibility. Which one do you think it is? Write down your choice as the correct illustration of 100% responsibility now. The correct example is mailing out a meeting invite with an attached agenda. Let's try again with the victim. Which of the following are examples of victim behavior? Scheduling and taking time for self. Not showing up to work rather than face a difficult situation or team member. Coping quietly during a meeting and reading email in lieu of contributing. Pouting, poor self-care or lack of boundaries. Again, notice the 3 behaviors that are examples of operating like a victim and see if you can identify the correct illustration of 100% responsibility. And write that down now. The correct choice, if we're looking for 100% responsibility, is the first one, scheduling and taking time for self. 100% responsibility looks like being all in. We make observations and you offer suggestions, asking for what you want, but most importantly, we're taking ownership for the outcomes. So to recap, here's your final quiz. Which of the following are examples of 100% responsibility? Is it A, when I take 100% and you take 100%? What about B, 50-50? That's very common in our culture. Maybe I'm exercising 125% of the load and you're taking 75%. That adds up. Or does it? And D, I'm doing 100% of the effort and you're doing 0. Well, the correct answers are A and D. That might surprise you. In this model, 100% responsibility really has nothing to do with what someone else does. The focus is on self. So when I'm operating at 100%, not more or less, as in illustrations B or C, it's 100% responsibility. There's no script, just practice. So I'd like you to take some time now and think about how will you successfully identify what 100% responsibility is? How will you effectively identify the roles and distinguish persecutor, rescuer, and victim in yourself and in others? What are some ways that you can effectively address and reduce conflict by operating from 100% responsibility? And what are some ways that you can bring this model into your relationships to spark creativity and fun, both at work and at home?